Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I just wanted to jump on here and kind of give you guys a story that might help you out. It's a kind of it could have been a nightmare, but it ended up working out. But I had this client out of Dallas that I work with about once a year, and they actually hire me as their audio tech. And what's funny about this is if you go back to the not like two videos back from this video, you're going to see a video just talking about how I became a six-figure creator working here out of my house. And this plays right into it. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to the channel, go check out that video. I think you get a lot of value out of it. But the stuff I talked about in that video, I guess God wanted me to actually apply and prove. And so I did. But I had this client out of Dallas that hires me once a year just to do audio, which, normally I'm doing video and audio. But this client brings in a cinematographer and all I do is audio. And it's actually a pretty intense deal because, they're flying in a producer, a cinematographer, and then I'm there to track 5 different people at once on 5 lav mics. And the way that I did the setup this time, and I'm so glad I did, was I rented 5 Rode wireless links, not these little Go's that you see on me, but a little more high end than these Rode links from Lens Pro to Go. I had all of those piped into my Zoom recorder and my Tascam recorder. I had a Comica VM30 as the overhead mic, and then I had the Comica VM40 recording a 32-bit float on the floor or more towards the knee level on a small stand in front. So the interview was like 5 people at once. Yeah, kind of a rare situation, but I think that's why they hire a separate audio person just to come in and do that one thing. Now, I've done this before with the same company, and it went off without a hitch with the exact same setup. Unfortunately, on this particular day, the 5 lavalier mics were experienced interference, and I really don't know where it was coming from, and I wasn't hearing it in my headphones. I think the reason I wasn't hearing it was because I had so many other backup mics, so that those mics were kind of band-aiding the sound. And now I did in my notes for the client, because I always take detailed notes, I did note that I was hearing some of it on the female talent and then maybe one other time on another person. And so there were some notes of like, hey, there might be some interference here. I heard the audio drop out in this one spot. But, once or twice for a 1-hour interview, I wasn't too worried about it. Now, fast forward, I gave the client all the audio. 2 days later, I heard back and said, hey, something's going on. All this audio is unusable. And so, I went in and they sent me a Dropbox link to listen to it. And I listened to all of it, and they were right. All the lav mics were basically just cutting in and out the whole time. I'm not sure if it was maybe somebody's cell phone, because sometimes that can do that. Depending on where you're recording and what kind of lav mics you're using, if they're using RF signal, it can be anything, honestly. And it can be the transmitters themselves. There's 5 transmitters sitting there on the table and receivers. But again, we use the same exact equipment before in the same scenario and nothing ever happened. Now, before I did set up an overhead boom as a backup, but I hadn't ever set up this many sources. Oh, and we had a Sennheiser mic on the main Sony A7S IV that was really close. It was the tight shot or the wide shot, and so we had that mic too if we needed it. But anyways, so the main audio that we were supposed to be using was unusable, and the editor was really unaware of what to do. I think just because like when you're editing video, most of the time you're going to be getting good audio and good video to work with. It's very rare that you have to do such a rescue mission on audio, if you will. But as the person who was in charge of the audio that day, it's my responsibility to make sure they got something to work with. So I got the message that the audio is unusable. I listened to it, and in fact, there was no saving it. Like, you might as well just delete those tracks. So that being said, we had 3 tracks left to work with. We had the overhead VM30, Comica VM30 boom mic. We had the one that was closer to the floor, which is the VM40 that was recording the 32-bit float. And then we had the Sennheiser, I forget the model, on the main camera, which was pretty close to the talent. So we had those 3. But this thing's got to be turned around in a week, and the editor's got his hands full with just getting the images right and getting the sound bites that he needs. And so this goes back to just being a man of your word. And, if you make a mistake, admitting it, that kind of thing, the Dale Carnegie way, I call it. So I emailed him back and said, look, I see what you're working with. I did not hear this in my headphones, but I will have you something back at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And this is at 6 p.m. because I knew this was going to take a long time. And so I said, I will have you something at 8 a.m. so that your, post-production is not halted by much. I mean, really, they probably were already off of work. And so I really didn't want them to have to wait at all. So I spent the next, I'd say 5 to 6 hours, from midnight to about 5 in the morning. I haven't slept, editing the audio. And what I ended up doing, and this is a testament to like the technology that we have now, was what I ended up doing was I listened to each talent and literally each piece of dialogue, this is an hour-long interview, each talent, each piece of dialogue, and I isolated the best mic for their voice. And in some cases, that was the VM30 that was overhead. Some cases, with somebody that was like closer, that would have been the VM40 that was at the knee level, that was like on a little stand. And then I didn't end up using the Sennheiser, which was on the camera. It just wasn't necessary, but it was a good third backup. And once I isolated all those tracks, a few of them were just about there, but thanks to Adobe Speech Enhancer, if you haven't used that, it is an amazing tool. Thanks to Adobe Speech Enhancer and the way that they've really let you customize that feature and make it very usable, I was able to go through. Now, I did have to go line by line. I did have to go, question by question with every talent, which is why it took so long. But I'm just grateful that it was available because, I mean, let's rewind 5 years ago before we had this AI tools to help us. I mean, that would have been probably the worst shoot of my life because there would just been no way to get it back. I mean, like even the overhead boom, it was good for 2 people, but then there were 2 guys that were kind of 3 or 4 feet behind them. They were kind of staggered. I'm not so sure it would have been salvageable with EQing. Now, I did that too. I didn't just use the enhancer. I EQ'd everybody's voice. I did noise reduction. I did reverb reduction. I did vocal boosting and, in the certain hertz where, I did all the vocal enhancements I could do. And then once I got it as good as I possibly could, then I used Adobe's Speech Enhancer to go over it. And then depending on who it was, how much it needed, I really didn't go over it ranges from 1 to 10. Most of them are at 4. I think one of them I had to kind of put to 7. And then, go line by line. But that's all the technical stuff with the shoot and kind of what happened. But I guess the takeaway from this is, have lots of sources of audio, like have a lot of backup plans, but also don't be afraid to just, come out and say, hey, I see this was wrong. I didn't catch it. This is my bad. And because I'm responsible, there was no time to waste. I didn't say, let me work on it for a few days and get it back to you. Because, they were ready to edit when they were ready to edit. I mean, that's just what it was. And they had unusable audio. So I spent all night isolating all the channels. And I sent that out to them at 8 a.m. Now, fast forward 9:30 a.m., I get a message back that is like music to my ears. Like they said, thank you so much. It sounds so good. We've got a music bed under it. Like it's going to work perfectly. This is going to save us so much time. We really appreciate it. And everything was groovy, right? And my mistake was admitted. Even though, yes, it was my mistake. At the same time, though, it was a faulty or it was a failed technical issue. But nevertheless, I was in charge of the technical, so it was a mistake. The mistake was admitted. I put in the work, the extra work, free of charge, obviously, to correct the mistake. And at the end of the day, the client has something that they can use and they can turn their project around really quickly and they don't have to schedule a reshoot, which would be catastrophic, actually, just because of the money that was put into it to fly in. We did the shoot in Mobile, Alabama, and they sent 3 people from Dallas. So, and you know what else? This should be stated. Whenever I got the message, I didn't worry because I just knew that worrying was not going to help it at all. And in fact, it was probably going to hurt it. And so what I did was I just put my head down and I said, I'm going to fix this if it takes me all night. And by God, it did take me all night. It took about 6 hours. But it was worth it. And, you know, that's just what you got to do sometimes. And now I know not to rent those packs again, or, you know, I'm not sure. There's very rare I'm doing a 5-person interview where they're all mic'd at the same time. So, learning experience. I think next time what we'll do is we'll literally set up 5 boom stands, a boom mic for every person. I just think it's worth it if you have to rent all of them. I have 2, so you'd have to rent 3, but yeah. Anyways, guys, that is my horror story that turned into a beautiful meadow of blossoms after I put in the work and stayed true to my word and took responsibility for my mistake. So I hope that helps you in your video production journey, and I'll see you later. Peace.